Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Halloween Hannah here. So I'm very excited today to come finally with a personal story, ghost-wise, that is not utterly terrifying. So I actually reached out to my Aunt Janet to get some of the details. So this ghost story is actually a combination of her personal experiences as well as my own. So just basically, I'm named after my great grandma Hannah. And what was really cool is my grandparents lived out in the country and she lived across the street from them. So, you know, when we had family events and all of those things, it was super easy to go visit her, which was very cool, right? That's my namesake. So I loved my grandma Hannah. She was a very sweet woman. And when she passed away, my Aunt Janet actually purchased the home. So it's kind of like you always feel like great grandma's there, but she lets you know in a myriad of ways. So for me, in terms of personal experience, so Aunt Janet has this big grandfather clock, and it's an old house. It's an old farmhouse, right? So when you walk on the, when you walk next to the clock, the floorboards are kind of creaky, and so the chimes on the inside will start to bang together, and it'll make noise. And that happens anytime, you know, you walk past that clock. So for me, and a personal experience that I had, I was babysitting my cousin at the time, and I was sitting on the couch, and my Aunt Janet had two Siamese cats who were kind of mean, but, you know, aren't all Siamese cats. Anyway, so I'm sitting there. Elizabeth had already gone to sleep, you know, an hour or so prior, and all of a sudden, it's like somebody was walking on the floorboards, and the grandfather clock starts making noise. So immediately, I'm like, okay, it was probably the cats, right? And I look, and the cats, both of them are on the couch. So someone walked past that grandfather clock, and those chimes made noise. This particular situation would actually happen multiple times to me. I would say maybe 10 or 15 times altogether. Never in a menacing way, never anything scary. Because I believe that it's my grandma Hannah. Just like check it in. Like, hey, what's up? I'm here. Have some chimes. You're not alone. You know what I mean? And so I totally, I actually love this story. And it still happens to this day. And I mean, this was, you know, many, many years ago. So I always just think of it fondly, if you will. So that's kind of my story of Grandma Hannah and haunting that house. But Aunt Janet actually shared with me a couple different stories that I want to share with you because I think they're pretty cool. Okay, so Aunt Janet, thank you in advance for sending me these stories. Okay, so Aunt Janet says, we have a couple of stories where things appeared where they weren't before. Tony, that's her husband, reminded me of the time that we found a big heavy rock inside our alcove on the bench, and neither one of us put it there. It came from outside. So that's kind of weird, right? Before we had children, the one I remember the most is I was getting ready for work and putting on my diamond earrings. Tony had gotten me for Christmas. One fell into the sink in the bathroom. Tony wasn't home at the time, so I put a towel in the sink and I wrote him a note to not run any water because the earring is probably trapped in the pipe, and would he remove it when he got home. So when he got home, he took the sink apart and couldn't find the diamond ring anywhere. And I guess he assumed that it had gone all the way through the drain. I came home and he told me the news, and of course I wasn't very happy. And then I turned around to leave and looked at the top of my dresser, and there sat the diamond earring. Oh, she said ring earlier. Sorry, diamond earring. So long story short, she dropped it down the sink. It definitely was not found in the sink, and then it magically appeared on top of her dresser. I think Grandma Hannah did that, my opinion. Okay, so Aunt Janet has a daughter, Tamara. So she says this story is connected to Tamara. When she first came to live with us, probably during the first year Elizabeth happened to be babysitting her. Elizabeth is her oldest. She was running around the house as usual and looked out the window and asked Elizabeth who that old lady was who was sitting in the lawn next to Grandpa. So naturally, Elizabeth looked out the window and she did not see the old lady sitting next to Grandpa. She told Tamara there was no one there, and Tamara said yes, it's a grandma with curly hair. So this could actually be two things. So bear in mind, remember I told you my grandparents lived across the street from my great grandma. So that old farmhouse is gone now, but my grandma and grandpa had passed right there. And the bench that they're referring to is the bench my grandpa always sat on. And what I'm thinking Tamara saw was probably my grandma. Which that's a very cool story that I actually didn't know. So I'm super excited to be reading through this with you guys. I loved my grandma and my grandpa for that matter. Okay, so my Aunt Janet is a foster parent. And so she says this story is connected with our foster children. So we had a foster daughter named Faith, and she would very often point and look up in the corner of our living room ceiling. We asked her what was up there, and she said, puppy. So every once in a while, we would ask her if the puppy was up there, and she would say no sometimes, and she would say yes sometimes. I particularly remember sitting in the rocking chair with her, feeding her her bottle, and she raised her finger and pointed to the corner and said, and I said, what, Faith? And she popped the bottle out of her mouth and said, puppy. So that's really interesting. I mean, there's been a lot of animals on the farm, so potentially that puppy could have been anything. Let's see. Oh, Aunt Janet says, so since I am a Christian woman, I believe that heaven is among us, just on a different plane. Sometimes I smell Grandma Hannah, and sometimes I smell Grandpa Clary. So that was my great grandma Hannah's husband. Let's see. Okay, so the last story she wanted to share was actually about the old farmhouse, not great grandma's. She said, I don't know if you knew Grandpa's house very well, but upstairs in the back bedroom, there was a closet. And although I don't know of actually anything happening with that closet, all of my siblings said was something spooky was definitely in that closet. So she personally never had the experience, but like it gave off a vibe. Okay. So I'm definitely going to reach out to my aunts and uncles. There are a lot of them, to see if they can elaborate on the closet story. Cause I'm dying to know like what they experienced. Right. Well, first of all, thank you, Aunt Janet, for sharing that story, all of them. So this is exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Like, I love this sort of thing. If you have a personal story, I would love to share it. You can, shoot this story to me at my Gmail, hannahshauntings@gmail.com. And I will put the link below. And remember, it doesn't necessarily have to be paranormal. It could just be something unexplainable, right? Like anything that's kind of weird and you're not really sure what happened. That's exactly what I'm looking for. I know today was far more upbeat. I actually love all of these stories. It just reminds me of being a kid, and I think we can all relate to that, right? So thank you again for watching this video. If you have not done so already, don't forget to click like, dislike, and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, guys, stay spooky. Ooh.